Single dad decided to visit his ex-wife in the hospital, but what he heard her say broke him. Before we dive into this incredible story, if you believe in the power of love, forgiveness, and second chances, go ahead and hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story that will move your heart and remind you of what truly matters in this life. Trust me, you are going to want to stay until the very end of this one, because what happens in the final moments of this story will leave you speechless. Now, let's begin. Marcus Reed was not the kind of man who asked the world for sympathy. He never had been. Even as a boy growing up on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio, in a neighborhood where the streetlights flickered more than they stayed on and the sound of sirens was as common as birdsong, Marcus had learned early that the world did not hand you comfort. You built it yourself, or you went without. His mother, Dorothy, had raised him and his two younger sisters alone after his father walked out one winter morning and never came back. Marcus was 9 years old at the time. He remembered standing at the front window, watching his father's old Buick disappear down the street, the exhaust fumes curling into the frozen air like a ghost departing. His mother came up behind him, placed both hands on his shoulders, and said something he would carry for the rest of his life. She said, "Baby, some people leave. But the ones who stay, they're the ones who matter. You remember that." And Marcus did remember. He remembered it every single day. He carried that lesson through high school, where he worked 2 jobs to help his mother pay the bills. He carried it through community college, where he studied accounting while working nights at a warehouse loading trucks until his back ached so badly he could barely stand straight. He carried it through his 20s, when he finally landed a decent job at a mid-sized accounting firm downtown, and for the first time in his life, he felt like maybe, just maybe, the ground beneath him was solid. And then he met Vanessa. Vanessa Clark walked into his life on a Tuesday afternoon in April, and Marcus would later say that the entire world shifted on its axis in that moment. She was a client's assistant, delivering a box of financial documents to the firm, and when she stepped through the door, Marcus looked up from his desk and completely forgot what he was doing. She had deep brown eyes that seemed to hold entire conversations without a single word, a smile that started slow and then took over her whole face like sunrise, and a laugh that rang through the office like music. She caught him staring and tilted her head to the side, amused. "You going to help me with this box, or you just going to sit there?" she asked. Marcus nearly knocked over his coffee getting up. The other accountants in the office laughed. Marcus didn't care. He carried her box. He asked her name. He asked if she liked coffee. She said she preferred tea. He said he could learn to like tea. She laughed again, and Marcus knew in that moment, with absolute certainty, that he would spend the rest of his life trying to make this woman laugh. They dated for 2 years. Those 2 years were the happiest of Marcus's life. Vanessa was everything he had ever dreamed of and things he didn't even know he needed. She was brilliant and ambitious, studying for her nursing degree while working full-time. She was warm and generous, the kind of person who remembered every birthday, who showed up at your door with soup when you were sick, who called just to say she was thinking about you. She understood Marcus in ways no one else ever had. She understood his silences, his need to provide, his deep fear of abandonment that he never spoke about but that lived in his bones like an old injury that ached before a storm. She would look at him sometimes, in those quiet moments when they were lying on the couch watching television or sitting across from each other at dinner, and she would say, "I'm not going anywhere, Marcus." And he would exhale. He would actually feel his chest release, like a fist unclenching. And for a while, he believed her. They got married on a warm September evening in a small church with white pews and stained glass windows that painted rainbows across the floor. Dorothy sat in the front row, crying happy tears, clutching a tissue in one hand and Marcus's sister's hand in the other. Vanessa walked down the aisle in a simple white dress, and Marcus cried too, which he had promised himself he wouldn't do, but he couldn't help it. She was so beautiful. The whole moment was so beautiful. He had never imagined his life could contain this much joy. When the pastor said, "You may kiss the bride," Marcus held Vanessa's face in both hands and kissed her like he was sealing a promise to the universe itself. The small congregation erupted in applause. Marcus's mother shouted, "That's my boy," and everyone laughed. It was perfect. Everything was perfect. For a while. Their daughter, Lily, was born 14 months after the wedding, on a snowy January morning. Marcus was in the delivery room, holding Vanessa's hand, coaching her through the breathing exercises they had practiced, telling her she was strong, she was incredible, she was doing amazing. And when the doctor placed that tiny, screaming, red-faced baby into Marcus's arms, something happened inside him that he could never fully explain. It was as if every wall he had ever built, every defense mechanism, every carefully constructed barrier around his heart, simply dissolved. He looked down at this impossibly small person, this perfect little life that he and Vanessa had created together, and he felt a love so enormous, so overwhelming, that it actually frightened him. He understood in that moment why his mother had been so strong. He understood what it meant to have someone depending on you completely. He looked at Vanessa, exhausted and beautiful and smiling through her tears, and he said, "We made her. We actually made her." And Vanessa laughed and said, "I did most of the work." And Marcus laughed too, and kissed them both, and the snow fell outside the hospital window, and the world was exactly as it should be. The trouble didn't start all at once. It never does. It crept in slowly, like water seeping through a crack in a foundation, invisible at first, then undeniable. Vanessa had always been driven, always reaching for the next thing, the next goal, the next achievement. It was one of the things Marcus loved about her. But after Lily was born, something shifted. Vanessa went back to work sooner than anyone expected, just 6 weeks after delivery, throwing herself into her nursing career with an intensity that surprised everyone. Marcus supported her. Of course he did. He rearranged his schedule, took on more of the childcare, hired a babysitter for the hours when neither of them could be home. He told himself they were a team. They were partners. They would figure it out. But the hours grew longer. The phone calls grew shorter. Vanessa started picking up extra shifts, volunteering for overtime, staying late for meetings that Marcus suspected might not always be meetings. He didn't say anything at first. He trusted her. He wanted to trust her. But the distance between them was growing, and it wasn't just physical. When Vanessa was home, she seemed distracted, like her mind was somewhere else entirely. She stopped asking Marcus about his day. She stopped laughing at his jokes. She stopped saying, "I'm not going anywhere," and Marcus noticed. He noticed because those words had become the foundation he built his entire sense of security upon, and now that foundation was cracking. They started arguing. Small arguments at first, the kind every couple has. Who forgot to buy milk? Who left the laundry in the dryer too long? But the small arguments became bigger arguments, and the bigger arguments became silences, and the silences became walls, and soon Marcus and Vanessa were living in the same house but existing in entirely different worlds. Lily was 2 years old, toddling around the living room, blissfully unaware that her parents' marriage was crumbling around her like a house made of sand. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. Marcus came home from work to find Lily with the babysitter. Vanessa wasn't there. She hadn't called. He tried her phone. No answer. He tried again. No answer. He put Lily to bed, read her a story, kissed her forehead, closed her door, and sat down on the couch to wait. Vanessa came home at 11:30. She smelled like wine. Her eyes were red. She wouldn't look at him. "Where were you?" Marcus asked. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking. "Out," Vanessa said. She dropped her purse on the counter and walked toward the bedroom. "Out where?" She stopped. Her back was to him. She stood there for a long moment, and Marcus could see her shoulders rise and fall with a deep breath. When she turned around, there were tears on her face. "Marcus, I can't do this anymore." The words hit him like a physical blow. He actually felt them in his chest, a sharp, sudden pain, like someone had reached inside him and squeezed his heart. "Can't do what?" he asked, even though he already knew. He already knew. "This. Us. I'm not happy. I haven't been happy for a long time." Marcus stared at her. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I want a divorce." The word hung in the air between them, enormous and final, like the last note of a song that you wish would keep playing but you know is over. Marcus didn't yell. He didn't beg. He sat on that couch and looked at the woman he loved, the mother of his child, the person he had built his entire life around, and he felt something inside him go very, very quiet. It was the sound of a door closing. Not slamming. Just closing. Softly. Permanently. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. It was not ugly, not in the dramatic, plate-throwing, lawyer-battling way that divorces sometimes are. It was something worse. It was quiet. It was sad. It was two people who had once loved each other more than anything in the world sitting across a table from each other, signing papers, dividing a life into two separate halves. Vanessa didn't fight for full custody of Lily. That surprised Marcus. It also hurt him, though he would never admit it, because part of him wanted her to fight. Part of him wanted her to want their daughter so badly that she would claw and scream and refuse to let go. But she didn't. She agreed to joint custody, every other weekend and Wednesday evenings, and Marcus became, for all practical purposes, a single father. Vanessa moved across town. She got an apartment near the hospital where she worked. She was professional during pickups and drop-offs, polite and distant, like a colleague you once knew well but hadn't spoken to in years. She never explained why she had been unhappy. She never told Marcus what had really been going on during those late nights, those long silences, those missing hours. And Marcus, true to the way his mother had raised him, did not chase her. He did not beg for answers. He let her go, because Dorothy had taught him that some people leave, and the ones who stay are the ones who matter. And Lily stayed. Lily was all that mattered now. Marcus threw himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to everything else. He woke up every morning at 5:30, packed Lily's lunch, laid out her clothes, made her breakfast. He braided her hair, badly at first, watching YouTube tutorials on his phone with one hand while holding a comb in the other, until he got better, and then good, and then so good that the other mothers at Lily's preschool started complimenting his work. He drove her to school every morning, picked her up every afternoon, helped her with her letters and numbers, read her stories at bedtime, sat on the edge of her bed and answered her questions about the world with as much patience and honesty as he could manage. And every night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus would sit alone in the quiet living room of his small apartment, and he would feel the weight of everything he was carrying, and he would close his eyes, and he would breathe, and he would tell himself that tomorrow would be easier. Sometimes it was. Sometimes it wasn't. But he kept going. He always kept going. If this story is already touching your heart, imagine what's coming next. Go ahead and hit that like button. It helps this video reach more people who need to hear this message. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Join this family. We tell stories here that change lives. Now, let's continue. 3 years passed. Lily turned 5, then 6, then 7. She was a bright, curious, talkative child with her mother's eyes and her father's stubbornness. She asked questions constantly, about everything, about why the sky was blue and why dogs couldn't talk and why some kids had 2 parents at home and she only had 1. That last question came on a rainy Wednesday evening, and it nearly broke Marcus. They were sitting at the kitchen table, eating spaghetti, and Lily looked up at him with those deep brown eyes, sauce on her chin, and said, "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy live with us?" Marcus set his fork down. He looked at his daughter, this beautiful, innocent little person who deserved so much more than the complicated truth. Because sometimes mommies and daddies love each other, but they can't live together, he said carefully. It doesn't mean mommy doesn't love you. She loves you very much. Then why doesn't she come to my school plays? Marcus didn't have an answer for that. Because the truth was, Vanessa had been pulling away. Not just from Marcus, but from Lily too. The every other weekend visits had become every third weekend, then once a month, then sporadic and unpredictable. Vanessa would cancel at the last minute, citing work, exhaustion, something that came up. Lily would stand by the window on Friday evenings, her little backpack packed, her favorite stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm, waiting for her mother's car to appear in the parking lot. And sometimes the car came. And sometimes it didn't. And on the nights it didn't, Marcus would kneel down in front of his daughter, wipe her tears, and say, "How about you and me have an adventure instead?" And they would go get ice cream, or go to the park, or build a blanket fort in the living room and watch movies until Lily fell asleep in his arms. And Marcus would carry her to bed, and then he would go to his room, and he would sit on the edge of his own bed, and he would be angry. Not the loud, explosive kind of angry. The quiet kind. The kind that sits in your stomach like a stone. The kind that asks questions you can never answer. Why wasn't he enough? Why wasn't Lily enough? What was so broken inside Vanessa that she could walk away from this? But anger is a heavy thing to carry, and Marcus was already carrying so much. So slowly, deliberately, with the same quiet determination that had gotten him through every challenge in his life, he began to let it go. Not forgive, exactly. Not yet. But release. He focused on Lily. He focused on being the best father he could possibly be. He coached her soccer team. He joined the PTA. He learned to sew when Lily needed a costume for the school play, and he sat in the front row of every performance, every recital, every parent-teacher conference, his phone out, recording everything, cheering louder than anyone. He was both mother and father, and he wore both roles with a grace that amazed everyone who knew him. His mother, Dorothy, helped when she could. She watched Lily on the nights Marcus had to work late. She taught Lily how to bake cookies and how to pray and how to be kind to people even when they weren't kind to you. She watched her son carry the weight of single parenthood without complaint, and she was proud of him, but she also worried. She worried because Marcus never talked about himself. He never talked about his feelings, his loneliness, his pain. He never dated. He never went out with friends. His entire existence had narrowed to two things, his job and his daughter. And while Dorothy admired his devotion, she also knew that a man who pours everything out and takes nothing in will eventually run dry. "You need to take care of yourself too, baby," she told him one Sunday afternoon, while Lily played in the backyard. They were sitting on the porch, drinking iced tea, watching the sunlight filter through the oak trees. "I'm fine, Ma." "You always say that." "Because I always am." Dorothy looked at him, the way only a mother can, seeing past the surface to the truth underneath. "You're allowed to be hurt, Marcus. You're allowed to grieve. You lost your marriage. You lost the life you planned. That's not nothing." Marcus sipped his tea and didn't answer. He watched Lily chase a butterfly across the yard, her laughter ringing out like bells, and he thought about what his mother said. She was right. Of course she was right. But acknowledging the hurt meant opening a door he had very carefully closed, and behind that door was everything he had been avoiding, the betrayal, the confusion, the image of Vanessa's face when she said she wasn't happy, the sound of his daughter crying at the window. It was all in there, behind that door, and Marcus was terrified that if he opened it, even a crack, everything would come flooding out and he wouldn't be able to stop it. So he kept the door closed. He kept going. He kept being strong. Because that was what he knew how to do. Lily turned 8. She was in 3rd grade now, a straight-A student with a gap-toothed smile and a passion for drawing. She drew pictures constantly, filling notebook after notebook with illustrations of animals, flowers, houses, families. Marcus noticed that in every family picture Lily drew, there were only two figures, a tall one and a small one. Daddy and Lily. No mother. That observation hit Marcus harder than he expected. He put the drawing back on the refrigerator, smoothed the edges with his fingers, and stood there for a long moment, staring at it, feeling something crack open inside his chest. That night, after Lily was in bed, Marcus did something he hadn't done in a long time. He called Vanessa. Her phone rang 4 times before she answered. "Marcus?" She sounded surprised. "And tired. So tired. Hey. I wanted to talk to you about Lily." A pause. "Is she okay?" "She's fine. She's great. She's doing really well in school. She scored 2 goals in her soccer game last Saturday." He paused. "You should have been there." Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "I know. She draws pictures of our family, Vanessa. Just me and her. That's it. No mother. She's 8 years old and she's already erased you from her picture of what family looks like. Do you understand what I'm telling you?" He heard Vanessa's breath catch. He heard something that might have been a sob, quickly stifled. "Marcus, I'm not calling to fight. I'm not calling to guilt trip you. I'm calling because she's your daughter, and she needs you. Whatever is going on with you, whatever you're dealing with, she needs her mother. I can give her a lot, but I can't give her that." Another long silence. When Vanessa spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "You're a better person than I deserve, Marcus. This isn't about what I deserve or what you deserve. It's about what Lily deserves. I know. I know. I'll try harder. I promise." Marcus wanted to believe her. Part of him did. But a bigger part of him had learned that Vanessa's promises were like sandcastles, beautiful in the moment but unable to